We've been given the nod to start. So as you're settling in, I'll introduce myself. I'm Chris Leggat, the CEO of Douglas Laing and Company. A pleasure to be here. And this is...
My name is Cara Laing. I am third generation in Douglas Laing and have the wonderfully ambiguous title of Director of Whisky. So I oversee spirit and marketing. Thank you all for coming today.
So just to break the ice, we're married, so anything we say, this might end up in an argument at some point, so just relax, have fun, but we always like to start straight away with a whiskey in one of these scenarios. So
yes, whiskey number one in front of you is perfect for this moment. It is a brand new bottling which we have launched at Whisky Live, and which was created by some of your own. So it is the Epicurean Paris limited edition. Only 600 bottles of this exist, and it was a small batch that was crafted by Parisian bartenders and spirit experts. So we would encourage you to nose it, to try it, to hopefully enjoy it. It is the perfect whiskey to start a tasting. It is archetypal of the lowland region in Scotland. So anticipate a really fresh, cut grass, slightly citric character. You should also get a wonderfully creamy barley style coming through there as well. By the very nature of lowland whiskies, they are light, they are elegant, they are very easy to drink. As I said, this batch was specially created by bartenders for the French market. It's bottled at 48% strength. As you can see, it's totally natural colouring. As is always the case with Douglas Laing, we never add caramel colouring, nor do we chill filter, so everything in the glass is as natural as it gets.
To reiterate what Cara said, the tasting notes are up there, but when we always start these things, masterclasses, tastings, we don't want to have death by PowerPoint. We want you to enjoy whiskey, so that's why we've gone straight in. 600 bottles of this are in circulation. It was launched, I think, last week or today. Last week, I got the nod. Really exciting to be part of that project. And if you want to try more of it, there's some more over at the Douglas Laing stand. So as you're enjoying your first whiskey of the Douglas Laing tasting, I want to take you back, and I'll tell a wee story. Cara does all the fun stuff about whiskey and talks about the spirit. I do all the boring stuff and tells you about Douglas Laing. So back in 1948, I want to reverse anyone in the room that can remember 1948, which is absolutely no one. But in 1948, the World Health Organization was founded by the UN. That was a long time ago. May the 14th, Israel declared independence from the British administration back in 1948. For those car lovers, there's a few car lovers in here over this side that I know. The first road-going Porsche, the Porsche 365, came out in 1948. In the UK, thank them a lot. The National Health Service, they look after us so well, but they started back in 1948. If you're a royal and you're interested, Prince Charles was born in 1948. But the most important thing was, of course, that Douglas Laing was founded back in 1948. So Douglas Laing, a little bit about us. That's Cara's grandpa on the screen there. It's not a very big picture, but Cara's grandpa started the business back in 1948 after some time with the brand King of Scots. That was the first brand that Douglas Laing had and started, and it was Cara's grandfather that started the business. Cara's father joined the business in the late 70s, having worked at White Mackay and White Horse Distillers, sorry. The the business has a strong view that you have to go and learn your mistakes elsewhere before you get to join the Douglas Laing business. So both Cara and our dad did that. So started in 1948 by that one. And a key point that you're going to see with all the whiskies you try today is we don't add colouring, we don't chill filter. It's as natural as it gets. And although this is a very serious environment and we've not had enough whiskies to enjoy it properly, whiskey should be fun. You know, whiskey is not your dad's drink. You know, you can enjoy it, high flavour, good fun, and we'll see some of that coming through. Any questions on the first whiskey for Cara?
No. Good. Did you enjoy it? We view Epicurean as the ideal breakfast whiskey. It is a great one to start the day with, whether over your porridge or with a slice of toast.
Do you drink whiskey with your
all
breakfast?
All the time.
Really?
As you know, all the time.
Do you drive to work?
No, I
Okay.
never drink drive, but we often, there are three of us in the business who write all of the tasting notes, and generally we find the best way to write our tasting notes is first thing in the morning on a clean palette. Before we've even had our first coffee of the day, we do our tasting notes, and the Epicurean and Lowland whiskies are always great to kick things off. We will now move on to a different region within Scotland, up to the Highlands with Timorous Beastie. I think if you bring it all through. So this is your whiskey number 2. It is a limited edition, 18 years old. It's for those of you who know our core Timorous Beastie, this is the Big Brother offering. It has been entirely matured in ex-bourbon barrels, so there's a wonderfully sweet vanilla character that runs through. Again, I would encourage you as I'm speaking to nose and taste it. Let me know your thoughts because...
Can I have one?
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks. Sorry. Thank you.
Because every whiskey is different and everyone will get something a little different. If you try this now, it will taste different if you try it outside. Try it now versus trying it later with food. It will taste different again. But generally for us, there's that vanilla that comes through from the wood heritage in the bourbon barrels. There's a wonderfully tangy orange marmalade character. It's buttery and creamy and mouth coating in terms of the mouthfeel. You should find there's a deliciously long finish there, again bringing out more of the spiciness, a home-baked quality, and more of that vanilla honeycomb sweetness. Again, for us, our view is this is archetypal and typical of the Highland region, which is why we use Timorous Beastie as the ultimate distillation of the Highlands.
So whilst you're enjoying that, I thought I would tell you a little bit about what makes us unique and what do we do and what do we bring to the party. And actually, the key things are one of the two key things that we can control as a business is the spirit. And we're lucky that Cara's grandfather started the business back in the 1940s. When he did, he was very focused on sourcing great spirit. So today, it's actually very hard to tell today how many distilleries are now working in Scotland, but the Scotch Whisky Association tell us that there's 127 distilleries producing spirit in Scotland. We're filling with about 60 of them. And when I mean filling, what we're doing is, as a business, we do everything other than distilling. We source the spirit from each of the 6 working regions of Scotland. And what we do is we take that spirit and we mature it in our casks. And I'll come on to that later. But thankfully, we've got a great plethora and options of spirit that allows us to produce these wonderful whiskies that we're trying. We don't actually mention it, but we're going on a bit of a journey. That first whiskey was the Lowlands, Epicurean. That second whiskey that you're trying now, Timorous Beastie from the Highlands. We're based in Glasgow. Our headquarters are there, and one of the things that we do whenever we have a tasting or one of these environments is we have an open invite to Cara's office where you can come in, to the sample room, and you can try cask samples from 3 years old to 55 years old. So because you've come along today to this masterclass at Whisky Live Paris 2019, Cara is inviting you to come and sit in her sample room and try lots of whiskies with her. If you all come at once, she'll kill me for saying that, but you can all come on your holidays, on your vacations or whatever, but please drop by. So we manage the spirit, and a key thing for us when we go through this process is managing the thousands of casks. Sounds great, but actually managing casks is a difficult program because each cask has its own style, has its own flavor, and you've got to nurture each cask like it was your own baby. They all grow up differently, they all age differently, and that's the joy that we have. Is our business was predominantly and historically all about single casks. Now what we're doing is marrying single casks. The whiskies that you're trying today, they're all blended malts, and I should say they're blends of single malts. Blended malt gets a hard rap. We have lots of comments like, I don't drink blend. I don't like blend. I only drink single malt, which is nonsense for us because these are marriages of single malts. And actually, there's great fun and great expertise that goes into producing them. Just a really boring bit, and I saw this last week and I stole it. International data, if you're interested in it, will tell you that 90% of total whiskey sold globally is blended Scotch whiskey, so a mixture of malt and grain. So things like Johnny Walker, for example, makes part of the 90% of the total volume. But interestingly enough, it's only 80% of the value. Likewise, if you look at malt, 10% of Scotch sold globally is 20% of the value, and that's where these sit. So there's a real strive and a real driving forward with both malt, but also the blended malt category. That was my nice little link in to say that we're the fastest growing malt brand in the world. We're growing at this man has just dropped his pen. He's so excited about that. Or his phone. But we've seen over the last 3 years about 41% growth in a category that's growing at 6%. So we're super excited about our range of malts. They look great, they taste great, and it's up to us to stand on a stage and not talk to you about single cask. We could come up and go, we've got another Port Ellen 36-year-old and we've released it, and wouldn't you like to try it? Less fun than doing this because we have real fun at Douglas Laing doing these. So Timorous Beastie, your second whiskey, which I can see now everyone's pretty much finished. I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions on that whiskey?
The Timorous Beastie is a mouse after a famous Scottish poem. So meant to be ironic. It's a timid little mouse, but the spirit packs a big punch. You got it? Good. Also worth saying very quickly, because I know we're up against it time-wise, but particularly in France, it would be remiss of me not to allude to the fact Timorous Beastie with its with its sweet creaminess pairs amazingly well with a slightly salted hard cheese. We like our food pairings at Douglas Laing, adding a bit of theatre, so one to bear in mind.
Whiskey 3?
Yep. So this is whiskey number 3, another animal. This was actually inspired by our family dog, which was and is a wire-haired fox terrier. If you look closely, the dog only has one front tooth, and that was indeed correct. Our family pet at the time had only one front tooth. Again, I'd encourage you to try the spirit in your glass. The reason Scallywag was inspired by our dog was because the dog was a fiery, feisty, full of fun, slightly cheeky character. And hopefully you'll agree the whiskey in your glass reflects that nature. Scallywag is matured, or this 10 years old Scallywag, I should say, is matured entirely in ex-sherry butts. It's bottled at 46% strength. Again, no colouring, no chill filtration. And the sherry impact over those at least 10 years is pretty evident. For me, expect Christmas pudding, spices, nutmeg, cinnamon. Expect cocoa, chocolate, red fruits. The wood for us is vitally important. Chris is about to cover it off, but the sherry butts that we hand selected for Scallywag have had a huge impact on the spirit in your glass. So I hope you enjoy that.
Still with us? Everyone smiling? Back row smiling? Smiling. So this is Scallywag. So we started in the lowlands, we went to the highlands, and now we've moved over to Speyside, where, again, as Cara says, we're trying a very typical Speysider here, a malt whiskey that is 100% matured in sherry casks. Can we tell them what's in it? I think we can. Yeah. So there's malts in here that are including Macallan, Mortlach, Glenrothes, and as Cara said, 100% sherry matured. So we're using the best ingredients to create what we think is the epitome of Speyside, with an absolute great fun pack. And the story about the one tooth is true. People are like, no, it's not true, it's true. So one of the things that we do, and again, whilst you're enjoying this, one of the things that we can control is our wood policy. So yes, we're thankful to Cara's grandfather for setting up those wonderful filling contracts back in the 40s and 50s, which allows us to have spirit supply today. The other main thing that we can focus on is wood. We both worked for Suntory, and in very Suntory fashion, they were very focused on wood, to the point where they would say 65 to 70% of the flavour of any whiskey would come from the wood. So it makes obvious sense that if you can control that aspect, that crucial aspect, then you should focus your time and energy on it. And again, in very simple terms, if you're producing great spirit and you put it into great wood, you make great whiskey. It's not really rocket science. But if you make good spirit, put it into phenomenal wood, you end up with phenomenal whiskey. So a lot of our investment in time and energy comes from our wood sourcing, and it's actually great fun. Along with sourcing the spirit around Scotland, wood sourcing is really important. The chart that you can see on the screen, talks about what actually does the wood bring to it. And a lot of it, and I'm sure many of you in the room understand the different cask types, and many of you have some questions. So if you do have questions on wood, please stick your hand up, and I'll ask Google to give me the answer. There is different types, and a lot of it is to do with charring levels and sourcing of the wood. So we predominantly buy casks that are from America that have had bourbon in them, and we also buy sherry casks predominantly from Spain that have either had Oloroso or PX in them, and you get so many different types of wood. I mean, it's really complex. Our wood buying program is far greater than our spirit buying program, and by that I mean suppliers. It's really easy to buy bad wood, and it's really hard to buy excellent wood. But it all comes down to the type of wood, and it comes down to the charring levels inside. So heavily charred at the other side are going to give you some of those real dark, sugary, burnt flavors. And the other side, if you get lightly charred cask, you're going to see more of those caramel, coconut, and vanilla. So depending on the whiskey that you're producing, it really depends on the wood that you're buying. And the fun side for us is every cask has its own unique character, so we look after every single cask. Each cask that we have at the business is managed by 2 people. So from its birth, from 0 hours the spirit is old, right the way through till it's 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, one person is always checking that cask. And it's phenomenal to see how spirit matures, because spirit does not always get better with age. It doesn't always just go and improve, especially young Islas. They improve really fast and then they drop away. Maybe a Speysider might take a little bit more time, but I think the point that I'm trying to make here is each cask is different. It takes time, but it's great fun. Any questions on wood? Perfect. More whiskey. Stop talking.
Okay. So, as Chris alluded to, we're taking on a bit of our regional journey. We're now moving you to the islands, which is not an officially recognised region by the Scotch Whisky Association, who govern our industry very tightly. But we recognise it as a region because Scotland has a huge number of really influential, very well-known island distilleries. So think Talisker, Highland Park, Arran, Jura, never mind the Islay whiskies, which we all know well. That thinking led us to create Rock Island, which ultimately is a marriage of single cask, single malts, exclusively from Scotland's Whisky Islands. This one that we're about to try, so this is whiskey number 4, is a 21-year-old limited edition. It is ultimately a bit of a sensory journey. It's hugely maritime in style, and that is down to the coastal location of these distilleries. This one is bottled at 46.8% strength, as always without colouring and without chill filtration. You may get something different. Please do try whiskey number 4. But for us, it brings to life that seaweed, maritime, oceanic character. There's also a nice balance with caramel, cream, barley, and that's determined by the distilleries or the single cask, single malts we've used. So the Jura, the Arran that is in there brings some barley sweetness and some creamy vanilla characteristics. There are other distilleries which we can't necessarily mention, which bring a slightly salty, seaweedy style. And then there are various Islay single cask, single malts, which we use to bring the earthy, peaty, smoky character in there. So hopefully you'll agree it's a perfectly balanced maritime malt with the oceanic style balanced by a barley, gristy sweetness.
For those who are trying it just now, you'll see that the finish on Rock Island 21 is really long. Cara's dad describes this. For those who have been to Scotland and been on a ferry to one of the islands, Cara's dad describes this like licking the side of the engine of a Calmac ferry. Now, for those who have ever done that, I'm sure it does taste like that. This is a really good example, and I'll very quickly tell you about the nightmare of making really good single malts into blended malts. Rock Island is an absolute horror to produce, and it's a horror because of what Cara has described. Those 4 main distilleries bring 4 very different characteristics to the malt. The Orkney brings a salty maritime flavour, the Jura an earthiness, the Arran a slight orange tang, and the Islay brings that peat smoke. We did a bottling of this, 3 months ago? And in very simple terms, and I will do this quickly, but in very simple terms, you take the casks, you follow the secret family recipe that only 3 people know that's hidden in a vault. You open the vault, you take the recipe out, you empty the casks, you create this vatting, which is now Rock Island. You have to wait for 24 hours for it to marry together. You get a sample, you get the sample from the bottling line to the office. It has to be approved by 2 people. You approve it, you nose it, you smell it, it looks like Rock Island, smells like Rock Island, you try it, and this time 3 months ago we tried it and it wasn't Rock Island. We were like, something's gone wrong, this is not the beauty of small batch production. So we realised it wasn't as salty as we liked. We had to go back, get some more Orkney single malt. You can guess which one that is. We had to get some more Orkney single malt to bring back that saltiness, do the vatting again. We're now a week later, pull the sample off into the office, go to bottle. We say, perfect, that's it. We've got the liquid ready. And the bottling line says, you're going to have to wait 2 weeks. You've missed your slot. So long story short, Rock Island, a complex whiskey, really is complex when you go to produce it because we're trying to always have that consistency. Doesn't always happen that way. So,
Chris talks a lot, so I'm going to intervene and move you on to the final whiskey. We have arguably saved the best for last. It follows the same complexity as Rock Island and gives us many headaches when we're producing it. But whiskey number 5 is Big Pete Christmas. This is his limited edition cask strength bottling at 53.7% strength. I think finish it in your own time, because I think we are being moved out the room.
I'm not moving. This is fun for me. I'm just warming up. I could do another 5 whiskeys. We're getting thumbs up from the back. We'll take another 20 questions. You can wait, organisers.
No. So enjoy Big Pete Christmas in your glass. It is a tiny batch we produce every year for Christmas. I would encourage you to imagine you're sitting in your leather armchair on a cold winter's night by the fire. As you're drinking it, imagine autumn bonfires, summer barbecues, smoked bacon, burnt toast, dried seaweed. It's for us, this is the epitome of Islay. It is a marriage of Islay, single malt, single casks, at an optimum strength of 53.7. We hope you enjoy. Sorry it's been rushed. Any final questions?
We'll go slow. Make them wait, because it's only Dave Broom that's sitting on the step to come on next. Take your time, he says. So this is the 10th anniversary for Big Pete. Big Pete came out in 2009, and it's an amazing celebration that we're having of 10 years of Big Pete. When Cara's dad brought out Big Pete at first, it's unbelievable to think that. He created it when Douglas Laing had an abundance of Islay single malts, and he created this whiskey with a man with a beard on it. Big Pete actually looks like Dave Broom. If you look at Big Pete and look at Dave Broom, there is a similarity. But Fred created Big Pete, and everyone said, no, you cannot do that. You can't put a man with a beard on a bottle of whiskey. It will never sell. And then the first batch sold. Hi, Serge. The first batch sold, and then the second batch sold, and then that was it. It was gone. So thank you for listening to Cara and myself. Any final questions? Enjoy the rest. Come over to our stand. We're somewhere in the green village. Thank you for coming along. Enjoy the rest of your day.